All right, finally, for today, we have House File 2000 from Representative Stevenson. Welcome. So I'm going to move that House File 2000, the third engrossment, be re-referred to the Ways and Means Committee. Chair Stevenson, I understand you have an author's amendment. It's coded A32 in our packets. Would you like me to move it for you?
If you would, please.
All right, I would like to move the A32 amendment. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, no. Motion carries. The A32 is adopted. The bill is in the form the author would like. Chair Stevenson, to your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm going to just be brief. We had a long night last night, a long day today. This is the bill to legalize sports betting. Several of you have probably seen this bill in other committees. But the bill legalizes both brick and mortar and mobile sports betting statewide. For the purposes of this committee, it includes a 20% tax on sports betting, a 10% tax on daily fantasy sports, which are included in the bill upon an amendment that was adopted in the State Government Finance Committee. There's a revenue estimate in the packet that details how much funds that raises and also the allocation of it. The most significant allocation from this committee's perspective is a cut to the tax on charitable gaming that in the third year of operation totals $40 million. Which is a significant tax cut. Members might be aware that in charitable gaming, at present, the charities are sort of the third beneficiary. When you look at the total use of dollars after prices are paid out, the largest amount of money, single amount of money, goes to the state in the form of taxes. Second largest goes to developer fees. The third goes to the charitable mission. Once this and other provisions that have passed into law are fully implemented, I expect that will flip, and the charities will be the number one beneficiary of charitable gaming, and the charitable mission will be the number one beneficiary of charitable gaming. I do also want to highlight a provision in the bill that I think is significant that Chair Listlegard has as a standalone measure that allows veterans organizations to use a portion of their charitable gaming proceeds to do capital improvement projects. Members' posts, American Legion's VFW posts around the state are closing, and a significant reason why they're closing is stress due to old buildings that need repair. And Chair Listlegard's bill, I think, is a good way to keep those institutions open and the key contributors to our communities that they are. I can say from experience that Coon Rapids American Legion closed 7-8 years ago now, and it was really a devastating thing for our community. So keeping these posts open is really valuable. So I want to thank Chair Listlegard for his work on that. And I understand, Madam Chair, there are testifiers, and I'm sure there are questions that I'd be happy to answer.
Yes, great. Thank you, Chair Stevenson. So we do have a few testifiers. We usually have sort of wide-ranging, freewheeling conversations and taxes. For the purposes of our time today, I'm going to just ask everybody to stay focused on the provisions that touch the tax statutes. So those are Articles 2, 4, 7, and Article 9, Section 2. So we're going to move to testifiers now. First up, Rachel Jenner. Welcome to the committee. Please just state your name for the record as you get started with your testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Rachel Jenner. I'm the Executive Director of Allied Charities of Minnesota. We represent many of the licensed charities who conduct gambling in Minnesota, and we have been working closely with Representative Stevenson and the other authors to bring this bill forward and reduce our taxes. We very much appreciate his efforts to give us meaningful tax relief. It has been our goal to bring the taxes down to a level where our organizations have the funds available to contribute more to their communities than they pay in taxes, as Representative Stevenson noted. Just 5 years ago, we were paying $88 million, and this year we will be at $200 million in taxes on an annual basis. Our ability to serve our communities has definitely been hampered by these excessive taxes. One local hockey organization that I've spoke with, and I've mentioned this in the past, was struggling to raise $200,000 to put a rink into their community, and their tax bill was over $100,000 a month. So while we agree with legislators who have expressed that they want to give us even more in tax relief. We need consensus, and we need bipartisan support to pass this bill this year. We have heard for many years that there will be a better opportunity. One in recent years was once the stadium was paid off, would be the perfect opportunity to lower the taxes on this industry. But that time has now come and gone. And with the increased revenue from sports betting, we feel that the time is now to lower the taxes. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Up next, Susan Sheridan Tucker.
Good morning, how are you?
Please just state your name for the record as you get started with your testimony. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Susan Sheridan Tucker, and I'm the Executive Director of the Minnesota Alliance on Problem Gambling. We are the state affiliate to the National Council on Problem Gambling, and our sole purpose is to advocate on behalf of those that are negatively impacted by gambling. I'm here, our organization is neutral on the legalization of gambling, but I'm here to raise attention to Article 7 in the bill as it pertains to tax cuts to charitable gambling. We have no issue around tax cuts per se. However, the original provision indicated that the National Council affiliate would receive 0.5% of the tax revenue and 0.5% to DHS for problem gambling. Because of the proposed tax cut, this directly impacts our budget. And so I wanted to raise awareness to you about that, because when that provision was enacted, it also stated that there should be no cuts to existing services, even though potential increases in services might take place. And for us, it's a significant cut. We're looking at figures of 136,000 this year, up to 166,000 in fiscal year 27. And while that may seem like a small amount overall, it is significant to our program budget. And so I just wanted to raise that issue, and I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Up next, Dr. Christy Janico. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name as you get started with your testimony.
Greetings, Madam Chair and members. My name is Dr. Christy Janigo. I am the American Legion Department of Minnesota Legislative Chair. First, I want to thank Representative Stevenson and his co-authors for working on this bill and for giving veteran service organizations a voice in this process. We support the provisions in Article 7 because of the charitable gambling tax cuts and the increase in lawful purpose expenditures to 50% of annual net receipts to allow our post to complete crucial capital improvements. I want to thank Representatives Swedzinski, Bjorn Olson, and Robbins for offering amendments to the tax omnibus bill last week in this committee on items that would benefit veterans. We've been asking for those changes for years. As those didn't pass, today I ask for your support on this bill. Vice Chair Norris, Representative Elkins, and Representative Lislegard, thank you for your partnership on the House Veterans and Military Affairs Committee and carrying our bills. We are deeply grateful for your allyship. Our more than 50,000 members agreed to prioritize advocating for these tax cuts above all other things we want for our community, because we think these will have the biggest impact. It's difficult for me to fully describe how meaningful this is to us. This amendment includes a historic amount of tax cuts for charitable gambling, adding $40 million more a year to the approximately $15 million that passed last year. We say historic because our state taxes have been higher than the amount of money we've been able to deploy to our communities for years. And we believe what you're doing with this bill will reverse that to the benefit of all Minnesotans. Although most of us stopped wearing the uniform years ago, veterans have a deep-seated need to continue serving their communities. And last session's changes to e-poll tabs had our people worried that mission would be compromised. That is why you likely received a lot of communication from us and saw a flood of social media messages almost exactly a year ago. We use charitable gambling funds to carry out our 4 pillars: Veterans Affairs and Rehabilitation, National Security, Children and Youth, and Americanism. The funds we donate pay for honor guards at burial ceremonies, outdoor recreation for disabled veterans, suicide prevention programs, and stopgap funding for homeless veterans. We donate to area schools programs to help housing and food insecure children. We support nonprofit human services organizations near our post. We fund youth sports scholarships and equipment for local fire departments. What I'm describing to you represents the best of America, and these traditions need to continue. Thank you again for hearing this bill today.
Thank you for your testimony. Finally, Stacy Stern. Welcome to the committee. Please just identify yourself as you get started with your testimony.
Hi, good morning. Stacy Stern. Good morning, Chair Gomez, Vice Chair Norris, and members of the committee. My name is Stacy Stern. I'm Senior Vice President of Government Affairs at Underdog Sports. Underdog is an emerging leader in the sports entertainment industry, focusing on verticals in paid fantasy sports, sports wagering, and sports content. And I'm here today to support HF2000, which will regulate fantasy sports contests and sports wagering in Minnesota. I want to thank Representative Stevenson for his tireless effort, judgment, and focus on this matter. Underdog Sports is a proud member of the Coalition for Fantasy Sports, made up of members from leading innovative fantasy sports platforms that include Prize Picks, Better, and Dabble. These innovators, like Underdog, want to ensure that sports fans in Minnesota can continue to enjoy fantasy sports contests they love and play, and that innovation continues to be paramount. HF2000 will regulate and tax sports wagering and fantasy sports contests throughout Minnesota, allowing the state to implement strong consumer protections while also ensuring fantasy sports operators can pay their fair share. Importantly, HF2000 will ensure that the hundreds of thousands of Minnesotans who currently play fantasy sports contests can continue to safely play the games that they know and love. Given the popularity of fantasy sports contests, it's easy to surmise that current projections of 500,000 in 2026 and 1.2 million in 2027 are very low based upon activity in comparable states like Michigan and Arizona. We expect to see higher revenue. Minnesotans are dedicated sports fans, and whether it's taking in a summer afternoon at Target Field, filling out an office-wide March Madness bracket, or debating which Anthony Edwards dunk was the best, and as a diehard Phoenix Suns fan, I can tell you there were many that were his best. But I digress. Sports fans love finding new ways to enjoy and express opinions on favorite teams and players. HF2000 acknowledges the difference between sports wagering and fantasy sports contests and proposes to regulate both and tax both activities, similar to what we've seen in many states around the country. For example, looking at Michigan and Arizona, both states have regulated fantasy sports contests and sports wagering at the same time and have allowed fans to continue to participate in the activities they love. They've proven that states win and consumers win with regulated, safe activities that generate meaningful tax revenues. I urge you to vote in favor of progressing HF2000 to its next committee stop and to bring Minnesota sports fans one step closer to authorizing the fantasy sports contests they love to play and allow them to join. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak with you today.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else present who wishes to testify on House File 2000? All right, not seeing any. We will move to amendments. Or Representative Koznick, did you want to say anything before we move on to amendments?
Madam Chair, just a clarifying question, if I could.
Sure.
With the delete all, or the author's amendment, excuse me, not a delete all, is section 5 of Article 8 still in the original bill then? If I could just get clarification of that.
Chair Stevenson?
I'm having to, if Representative Koznick, Madam Chair, Representative Koznick, you could tell me what,
Yeah, page 70, Mr. Chair, it's,
We can actually, we can just ask Ms. Hagler to answer that one.
just because I know, it wasn't clear because I know section 4 was deleted and a new section added, but I just want to make sure if section 5 is deleted or not.
Yeah, great. Ms. Hagler?
Madam Chair and Representative Koznick, Section 5 still is in the bill. It was not deleted.
Representative Koznick?
Thank you. Appreciate that clarification.
All right, great. So we're going to move to amendments. First up, we have the amendment that's coded A28 in your packet. Representative Davids, would you like to move the A28?
So moved, Madam Chair.
All right, the A28 is before us. Please describe your amendment, Rep. Davids.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What this amendment does is it basically jettisons everything except the tax relief for our charities. What we did at the end of last session was a huge mistake, devastating to our charities. And I have a rather lengthy record on these issues and have always supported our charities that do such great work, whether it be the American Legions or whatever that group might be. So I'm very clear on the record as having supported them in the past. What we did last year was we really hit them hard. Now, when we realize what we did, now we're trying to fix it. And we put it in a bill that to some of us is extremely objectionable. I do not believe in the expansion of gaming. Never have, never will. And so what this does is this is a very clear that we support the charities. We want the charities to have their tax cuts. And I do think, Madam Chair, it's somewhat unfortunate that they're going to go another year with nothing because this bill will not pass. It'll probably pass the House, but it will not pass the Senate. So here we go again. And this goes way back. I remember the 2017 tax bill where I had great relief for the charities in that tax bill, passed the House, went over the Senate, came back from conference, and it had been stripped out. We weren't able to keep it in there. And the explanation from the Senate was, well, Representative Davids, Chairman Davids, these charities were set up to make the state money. And I guess that was a different way to look at it. But so it's unfortunate we go another year here. But Madam Chair, I would ask for support on the A28 amendment and would request a roll call.
All right. Representative Davids has requested a roll call, so there will be a roll call. Is there any further discussion on the A28? Representative Anderson.
Thank you. I'd like to speak in favor of the A28 too. I think we, both sides of that recognize what happened to the charities last year and how devastating the tax bill last year is going to be on the charities. The minimum we can do is this tax provision, and I want to say it's kind of throwing scraps, but at least it's something to help make up for the devastation that occurred. So especially if, as Lead Davids mentioned, it's not likely that this is going to pass the Senate. This is something that we can do that's positive for our charities, and I think it needs to get done, and I would urge support of the Davids amendment. Thank you.
All right. First time I've heard $40 million a year referred to as scraps, but that's cool. Is there any further discussion on the A28 from members before we go to Representative Stevenson?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. We're really put in a bad situation here because something that many of us really support, the charities, are being put with something that we just cannot stand for. So it puts us in a genuine conundrum, a quandary, if you will, a real-life dilemma. This A28 amendment would take care of that, and I think we owe it to the charities for what we did to them last year to fix this without the extremely controversial other parts of the bill. So thank you, Madam Chair, and members, I appreciate a yes vote.
Representative Stevenson?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative Davis, for the amendment. I ask members to vote against the amendment. Number one, the financing for the tax cuts for the charities is the wagering on sports betting, the tax on sports betting, which would be eliminated by the amendment, which means that there's no pay for the tax cuts that are proposed here. Secondly, of course, obviously, I support legalizing sports betting and would oppose an attempt to delete the efforts to legalize sports betting. I do want to add, for context, because I think facts are important and numbers matter. The most recent report from the Gambling Control Board indicates that last year, the total amount of money that went to the charitable mission, the total amount of money the charities got from e-pull tabs for the whole year was $60 million. They got a tax cut last year worth $15 million. This is a tax cut worth $40 million. There was also a cap on developer fees that will generate millions of dollars of savings for the charities. So I want to be clear about when people talk about scraps or how devastating certain things are, I think the full context is important. With the passage of this bill, the charities will, without question, be in a much stronger financial position than they were heading into last year.
Thank you, Representative Stevenson. So the roll call having been requested, the clerk will take the roll. Chair votes no.
Chair Gomez, no. Vice Chair Norris.
No.
Vice Chair Norris, no. Lead Davids.
Yes.
Lead Davids, yes. Representative Agbadje.
No.
Agbadje, no. Representative Anderson.
Yes.
Anderson, yes. Representative Brand.
No.
Brand, no. Representative Elkins.
Elkins, no.
Elkins, no. Representative Howard. Excused. Representative Joy.
Yes, please.
Joy, yes. Representative Kosnick.
Yes.
Kosnick, yes. Representative Lee. No. Lee, no. Representative Listlegard.
No.
Listlegard, no. Representative Olson B.
Yes.
Olson B, yes. Representative Olson L, excused. Representative Pinto.
No.
Pinto, no. Representative Robbins.
Yes.
Robbins, yes. Representative Smith.
No.
Smith, no. Representative Swedzinski.
Yep.
Swedzinski, yes. Representative Weiner.
Yes.
Weiner, yes. Representative Whitty.
Yes.
Whitty, yes. Representative Joachim.
No.
Joachim, no.
Sorry. Yeah, no.
Madam Chair, there being 9 ayes, 10 nays, and 2 members excused.
There being 9 ayes and 10 nays, the motion does not prevail. The A28 is not adopted.
If you came with, yes.
All right, up next is the A31 from Representative Robbins. Representative Robbins, would you like to move your amendment?
So moved, Madam Chair.
All right, please, to your amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, this is another attempt to try to help the charities. I appreciate Chair Stevens trying to include the charities in this global sports betting package, and I appreciate his work with the charities. And I appreciate that the charities have been at the table. I really do. And I appreciate that there is some tax cuts in the bill. But first of all, Chair Stevenson just, well, let me just say what the amendment does. Basically, it gives a 5% flat tax for the charities, replacing all these other layers of taxes. And the reason this is important, members, is because the charities really did lose so much last year. And that will be compounded over all the years that they do not have e-pull tabs. And so they continue to pay a lot of money to the state general fund. And they should be able to keep all of that money in their communities. I don't know why the state sees charities as a revenue maker for the state, but I think it's wrong. I don't think that's how we should be looking at them. As Chair Davids indicated, that was what the charitable tax was apparently set up, if we believe former Senator Bach. I think that's the wrong way to look at charitable gaming taxes. That money should be staying in the community, and so that's what this amendment does, and I'm happy to talk more about it after there's questions or discussion.
All right, Representative Kosnick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chair Stevenson, this reminds me of a bill that we had in state government by the majority leader on a totally different subject, but there was a variety of provisions seemingly related in his bill with Majority Leader Long. And I asked him if he was familiar with the legislative term log rolling. Chair Stevenson, are you familiar with that term?
Representative Kosnick, will you please just make your point about the A31 amendment that's before the committee?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Chair Stevenson and committee members. Log rolling is a term, legislative term used to refer to a variety of provisions in a bill and packing those provisions together because an individual bill or provision of the bill may not stand on its own. And so I'm concerned, or I think the author and we as a legislature might be concerned that this sports betting bill is log rolling. What we're doing is putting different provisions in there that some people like, but other people might not like the overall bill, and the provision would not stand alone on itself. And so I appreciate that the author is trying to coalesce a broad coalition of people to support this sports betting bill. And by packing in and log rolling in a favorable provision for the charitable gaming groups, I think that's an important enough provision that it would stand alone on its own. And we're trying to entice members to vote for the overall provision of sports betting by putting something in here that has broad bipartisan support. This should be on its own. We're log rolling in a favorable provision that Representative Robbins is her amendment helps support, and I support the amendment. But I'm concerned, or we should all be concerned, that we're just building a coalition, and it would not stand up if it was challenged in court. And I hope if this does pass, that there may be. We do this probably a little too often in the legislature, and I hope somebody might challenge it. We should be supporting our charitable gaming associations. Last year, the majority.
Representative Koznick, we're talking about the A31 amendment. We're going to get to member discussion on the overall bill. Will you please confine your comments to the A31 amendment that's before the committee right now?
So, Madam Chair, last year the majority decimated the business model, the charitable gaming associations, and I support the A31 amendment so that all the local charities, groups, projects across the state may continue to flourish.
Representative Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also speak in favor of the Robbins amendment. When we essentially, we talked about a business model, but when you have less sales and less net income, you know, the taxes on that, how do I want to put this? The charities are going to have considerably less sales without the e-pull tabs, which means they're going to also have considerably less net income. And we need to do what we can to allow them to keep as much as possible. So of this smaller dollar amount of net income after, again, we decimated the e-pull tabs last year. By lowering the tax rate to 5%, that'll help a little bit. Every little bit helps, but this will help a little bit. So I would encourage us to support this amendment. Thanks.
I just want to remind everybody that we did not ban e-pull tabs last year, that what we did was we aligned the design of e-pull tabs with the original deal that brought them into being. And so we're just going to not say things that are untrue as we're having this conversation. We're not talking about a future without e-pull tabs. That's not where we are. Is there any further member discussion on the A31? Can I go to Rep. Stevenson and then you can close up? Representative Stevenson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I appreciate that clarification is really important for folks to know that we did not ban e-pull tabs or end e-pull tabs, and in fact, members of the committee should be aware that the Gambling Control Board is regularly now approving games compliant with the new rules. So there will be e-pull tab games continuously in Minnesota, and I hope all members responsibly carry that message forward because we don't want to mislead the public into thinking that e-pull tabs are going away. It's also important to know that the tax cuts that are contemplated in the bill that's before you, as well as the tax cuts that were included in your bill last year, Chair Gomez, apply not just to e-pull tabs, but paper pull tabs as well. So with regard to the argument that if the amount of revenue goes down, the tax cuts aren't worth as much, that is not entirely accurate because the paper pull tabs are also getting a tax cut. The value of these tax cuts this year is also reflective of the MMB forecast, which accounts for the impact of the changes in e-pull tab rules last year. So the $40 million, it's in the bill, is reflective of the new landscape. I do want to put some numbers before the committee in terms of what the Robbins Amendment would cost. The biennial cost of this amendment is $260 million. So it is a massive cut in tax on the charities. And I also do want members to be aware, as Ms. Sheridan Tucker noted, that a portion of that money is dedicated to problem gaming, and that would disappear as well if you cut the taxes this significantly. So this would result in a cut to problem gambling programming at the state level of 1.7 million on a biennial basis, on a 2-year basis. So a significant cut both in revenue. And of course, if members look at their revenue estimate on the bill, you can see that the total amount of money generated by sports betting is not anywhere close to $260 million, which is the cost of the Robbins Amendment, which means that there's no financing for this tax cut that is found in the sports betting bill.
Thank you. Representative Robbins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I appreciate the clarification that e-pull tabs were not banned, but they were decimated. The change in how the games will be played will significantly reduce revenue for charities, and that is a fact. And so I appreciate accuracy, so I'm happy to clarify my remarks, but I want the underlying point to stand that the loss of revenue to charities is substantial. Secondly, I think we also need to be accurate with how these tax cuts are going to affect charities. And I appreciated hearing from the woman from Allied Charities and how it's better to take this than nothing, basically. And I find it so offensive how we have been talking about veterans in this committee, and they literally just get. Last year they were devastated. This year they're getting some accommodation, but it's not $40 million a year, and I don't think it ever will be. Members, the first round of the tax cuts in the first year, they get $6.9 million. The next year, if it holds up, they get $27 million. The third year, they get $34 million. And in the fourth year, FY28, is when they would see $39 million. So they don't get $40 million next year, and a lot of my local charities think they do. That is not accurate. So let's be accurate on all accounts. By the time we get to FY28, members, we're looking at deficits. I am concerned that this will just get reversed. We are building the tax cuts out into the far years when we all know there are deficits looming, and we could just turn this back. I think the charities are honestly getting played, and I'm sad about it. I'm grateful that they can now use some of their money to do improvements in their facilities. That's something we've been fighting for years, and it's really meaningful. I'm grateful for that. But what is never said is that that expires in 2029. So they think they're going to be able to do that. Do you know how long it takes to get fundraising going and projects bid and things done? A lot of them won't even be able to get their projects done before that expires. Most of my local charities have no idea that's going to expire. So when we are in here patting ourselves on the back saying we are doing good for the charities, I just want to bring the reality out so that our local charities understand this is something, and it may be better than nothing, because I think the sports bill is going to die and they will again get nothing from this session. But members, this is not $40 million a year, and they don't get to use this in perpetuity. And by the time we would get to the scale of $40 million, I don't think there's money for it. And to Chair Stevens' point about what my bill would cost, yes, it would cost the state $260 million, $130 million a year to reduce the charity tax to 5%. That is how much the state is making off the backs of our charities. That just gets dumped into the general fund. the state is spending that on who knows what. So that is important. Like, the charities are funding all these operations in the general fund. So members, I hope that highlighting this amendment, I know it's going to fail, but I wanted to bring these points out, members. We have to, as Representative Koznick said, take a standalone look at the charities. They deserve their freestanding bill, a clear up or down vote on how we are treating them, and they should not be funding $260 million of the state government every biennium. I would like a roll call, Madam Chair.
Roll call, having been requested, there will be a roll call. Seeing no further discussion, we'll take the roll on the A31. The chair votes no.
Chair Gomez, no. Vice Chair Norris?
No.
Vice Chair Norris, no. Lead Davids?
Yes.
Lead Davids, yes. Representative Agbadje?
No.
Agbadje, no. Representative Anderson?
Yes.
Anderson, yes. Representative Brand?
No.
Brand, no. Representative Elkins?
No.
Elkins, no. Representative Howard?
No.
Howard, no. Representative Joy?
Yes.
Joy, yes. Representative Koznick?
Yes.
Koznick, yes. Representative Lee? No. Lee, no. Representative Listlegard? No. Listlegard, no. Representative Olson B?
Yes.
Olson B, yes. Representative Olson L, excused. Representative Pinto?
No.
Pinto, no. Representative Robbins?
Yes.
Robbins, yes. Representative Smith?
No.
Smith, no. Representative Swedzinski?
Yes.
Swedzinski, yes. Representative Weiner?
Yes.
Weiner, yes. Representative Whitty?
Yes.
Whitty, yes. Representative Joachim?
No.
Joachim, no. Madam Chair, there being 9 ayes, 11 nays, and 1 member excused.
There being 9 ayes and 11 nays, the A31, or the motion does not prevail. The A31 is not adopted. We're moving on to the A33 from Representative Koznick. I'm just going to ask members, I understand that people are passionate about this issue, but what we're not going to do is we're not going to say untrue things, either about actions that this legislature have made, nor are we going to say things like other untrue things, like that members have been disparaging veterans in our committee today. That has not happened. And if I hear anybody say something that's untrue, I apologize. You know, I usually do not do this, but I'm going to interrupt you if I hear you say something that's untrue. Representative Koznick to the A33.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I made a mistake in getting my amendment drafted. I'd like to add a verbal amendment on line 1.2, or maybe House Research could help me, I want to keep section 5 in the bill and delete the rest on page 7 and 1 is my intention. So if we could have help clarifying that, that would be appreciated.
All right, Ms. Hagler.
Madam Chair and members, so the instruction on the A33 amendment would be page 1, delete line 2, and insert, quote, page 70, comma, delete sections 1 to 4, end quote. Page 1 after line 2, insert, quote, page 71, comma, delete section 6, and insert, quote, colon, end quote.
Is that your motion, Representative Koznick?
I think I followed, that is my motion, Madam Chair.
All right, Representative Koznick has moved his oral amendment to the A33. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Motion carries. The A33 is amended. Representative Koznick to the A33 as amended.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The A33 amendment as amended restores what we had in statute essentially by allowing the Minnesota Horse Racing Commission to kind of set the guidelines on horse racing and deletes the parts of the author's bill that dealt with banning historical horse racing. And Madam Chair, I'd request a roll call.
All right, there will be a roll call on the A33. Is there other member discussion to the A33? Not seeing any. Representative Stevenson?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, I'd ask for a no vote on this provision. The historical horse racing issue is not something that's squarely in the jurisdiction of the tax committee, but among other things, I'm not sure that we should be passing bills saying the legislature shall not pass a law to do anything. And so I think that is reason enough to ask for a no vote on this amendment.
All right. Representative Koznick, any final thoughts before we move to a roll call vote?
We can have more discussion later, but just appreciate committee members' support.
All right. So a roll call's been requested, so Ms. Sabus will take the roll. Chair votes no.
Chair Gomez, no. Vice Chair Norris, excused. Lead Davids.
Yes.
Lead Davids, yes. Representative Agbaje. No. Agbaje, no. Representative Anderson.
Yes.
Anderson, yes. Representative Brand.
No.
Brand, no. Representative Elkins.
No.
Elkins, no. Representative Howard.
No.
Howard, no. Representative Joy.
Yes.
Joy, yes. Representative Koznick.
Yes.
Koznick, yes. Representative Lee. Excused. Representative Listlegard.
No.
Listlegard, no. Representative Olson B.
Yes.
Olson B, yes. Representative Olson L. Excused. Representative Pinto.
No.
Pinto, no. Representative Robbins.
Yes.
Robbins, yes. Representative Smith.
No.
Smith, no. Representative Swedzinski. Excused. Representative Weiner.
Yes.
Weiner, yes. Representative Whitty.
Yes.
Whitty, yes. Representative Joachim.
No.
Joachim, no. Madam Chair, there being 8 ayes, 9 nays, and 4 members excused.
There being 8 ayes and 9 nays, the motion does not prevail. The A33 as amended is not adopted. So we're going to, that's the end of the amendments. So we're going to move now to member discussion on House File 2000 as amended. Any members who would like to speak? Representative Anderson.
Thank you. I have a question for nonpartisan staff. On the charity tax cut numbers, the savings, does that, and I apologize, there's been so many different versions of the bill that I can't keep it all straight.
Yes.
But does that assume that the revenues from the e-pull tab, from charitable gambling remain the same? Or higher, or lower, or what's the assumption on those tax?
Ms. Hagler, or Ms. Templin?
Whoever can answer. Thank you.
Madam Chair, Representative Anderson, the revenue estimate before you is based on the February forecast, which includes the laws that were passed, or the assumption, the laws that were enacted last session.
Representative Anderson.
Thank you. Can you answer, is the assumption that the revenues, the net revenues that are taxable are going to be the same for charities?
Ms. Templin.
Madam Chair, Representative Anderson, the February forecast for lawful gambling did include the regulatory changes that were enacted last session, and the revenues for lawful gambling did show a decrease in the February forecast, especially in the 26 and 27 biennium.
Representative Anderson.
Thank you. Thank you. And how much of a decrease was shown?
Ms. Templin.
Madam Chair, Representative Anderson, I don't have the exact percentages before me. I do remember in the November forecast, it was around 20%, but if it would be okay, I could get back to you after committee.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Anderson?
Thank you.
All right. Anything further? Representative Olson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the last 45 minutes. I think it's been an excellent experience learning and gaining more knowledge on how we can make a better bill for next year, next session. I think that we allowed Representative Stevenson the opportunity to fine-tune his bill a little bit further. I think that with the nonsense that's going on in the Senate that borders on criminal, we probably will not see this bill pass this year, which is why it's really sad for me personally that we couldn't at least take care of our charities. We're going to kick them down the road with the can that we're kicking down the road. This is a really sad thing, but at least we gained a little bit more experience on how the committee process works. So thank you for the last 45 minutes. I do not think that very much is going to occur with this in the Senate. So thank you.
Representative Koznick.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and disappointed the A33 amendment barely did not pass, but that's how it goes. It is Derby week, and we'll take our odds here. The particular issue on that one with the historical horse racing, it does have a tax implication because the assault that I would say on horse racing and the state's horse tracks, it's a $500 million industry, and derived out of that industry, we have horsemen and women throughout the state, every part of the state, that are paying taxes and creating economic activity. It's thousands of jobs in Anoka County and Scott County and at the two racetracks and beyond the racetrack, the hotels, all the extras that comes with that activity, the entertainment, the hospitality, the agricultural. And so I think there should be big concern with the provisions in the bill that block the horse tracks from continuing to be economically viable. I had mentioned my concerns with the sports betting bill, that it has a variety of different provisions that are on their own would not pass individually. I understand trying to build a coalition, but when we're log rolling provisions in there to try to garner support, I think that puts us in some cautious areas of law that would be challenged. And then more importantly, with those provisions, we're changing the rules in the middle of the race. And there is a case being tried out through the courts on whether the Minnesota Horse Gaming Commission has the authority to permit the historical horse racing. And what this bill does and those provisions, it closes the starting gate before the race gets off to start. That's not the legislature's purview. But Chair Stevens, I appreciate that you have, you at least listened when we were in the state government finance and had your amendments to kind of tighten up the language on the historical horse racing. Not to my liking, but at least I appreciate that you were paying attention. I hope everybody has a good Derby week. This weekend is the 150th running of the Kentucky Derby. I'm kind of a fan. But this bill doesn't quite cross the finish line, and I think it's running out of steam and finding a slow death.
All right. Any further discussion? Representative Swedzinski?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just I would add to Representative Koznick's comments about the amendment when it comes to horse racing and the impact it has on agriculture in our state, and are wishing that we could potentially have done something with that, and just reach out to the organizations that came and spoke on behalf of this bill. Good job. Good job coming and representing your interests. There's a reason why this bill is before us. It's because of what happened before. We won't go into that. But I'm reminded kind of if you remember the scene from Indiana Jones, and I think it was The Last Crusade, there was the scene where Indiana Jones goes into the room filled with goblets. And the Crusader says, you need to choose which goblet. And one person rushes in and grabs the wrong one. And Indiana Jones comes in and grabs the right one. And when we're looking at issues, when we're looking at the sides we're taking on issues, the reason why this bill is before us is because we chose unwisely last session. And it potentially is going to have a real impact on charitable gaming. And it's not just the tax amounts. It's about the games that people chose to play to pay for a stadium. And the way they were designed were on purpose, so that people would enjoy them, have a reason to come into these establishments. And tax relief is good, but also the entertainment value of what was lost, I think, is maybe one of those things that's not going to be potentially recognized in this bill. And, I would just encourage as we move forward, whether charitable gaming is part of a change, whether it's sports betting is a change, and whether that becomes law or not in this state, I would just encourage the organizations that are affiliated with this, that were impacted, to remember what caused this bill. Thank you.
Representative Whitty.
Thank you, Chair Gomez. Representative Stevenson, thanks for bringing this bill forward to us. My concern is with horse racing and the historical piece that Representative Koznick brought forth. Our horse tracks have been a part of this, and obviously have an important piece in our communities and throughout the state. Recently, I learned a bill that Representative Koznick brought forward, Elijah on the backside, and the racetracks supporting that nonprofit that help our first responders, our military with PTSD. And after the Burnsville incident, they reached out and have been helping them get through this incident. So whatever ways as you move forward with this, we can help our racetracks. I would appreciate that. Obviously, helping our veterans. I see you're trying to put that part in here, so I appreciate all those efforts, but I just wanted to ask you for that favor. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Whitty. Representative Listlegard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, it's been one heck of a conversation, and obviously, last year I didn't agree with everything, but it passed. We did what we said we were going to do, and they kept their word. And I think that has been clarified today. What I am disappointed in is there is no perfect bill. And I watched everyone come up to this table today and testify. And everyone testified in favor of the bill. No one came and said that they were against the bill. And then when I heard everybody and having conversations that this bill is not going to go anywhere, I looked over at the veterans over there and I watched their demeanor change as this hearing went on. And I feel for you, because you were told that this has no chance. Is this a perfect bill? Probably not. But it was moving in the right direction. And we listened to you. We worked with you. Chair Stevenson did. And I'm not giving up. I think that there's work to be done. I'm not giving up on the Senate. I would encourage that you guys continue your advocacy to try to get this over. And I feel for you after the conversation that I heard today. So I will be voting strongly for this bill, and I hope that you get the relief and the support that you deserve.
Lee Davids.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. And one thing I've learned over the years is you don't provide false hope. And I think that's really what we've done here. But beyond that, Madam Chair, if we get a roll call.
There will be a roll call.
And Madam Chair, I would really like to thank you, your staff, and every member of this committee for the hard work they've done the last 2 years. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Representative Stevenson.
Well, I will also thank you, Chair Gomez, and your excellent staff in the Taxes Committee who have worked very hard on this bill and many others, and I very much appreciate it. And I appreciate the conversation today, though not necessarily the prognostication. There's a long way to go left in session, and nothing's ever dead until sine die is one of the oldest cliches about this place, but it's because it's true. So let's keep working, would be my ask of my colleagues. I did just want to briefly mention, because of the conversation about the historic horse racing, which again, I understand it's not a tax provision, but if you give me just a little bit of license, since other people have been talking about it. This relates, for members who haven't been paying attention to this particular piece, there was a decision by the Racing Commission to authorize 500 historic horse racing machines at each of the state's 2 tracks, so 1,000 new machines. These are slot machines, members, horse racing themed slot machines that were authorized to put at the tracks. But more importantly, I just want members to understand they are not there now. So the language in this bill does not stop anything that is currently happening at any track it prevents something from happening that was just authorized by an unelected commission. That's all that that language does. Members, Minnesotans want sports betting to be legal. That's very clear in the polling. There's a broad coalition in support of this bill. It accomplishes many important tasks, and I'd ask members for a yes vote on the bill.
Thank you, Representative Stevenson. So we're going to move now to voting on House File 2000 as amended. We're going to do a roll call. The chair votes aye.
Chair Gomez, aye. Vice Chair Norris. Aye. Vice Chair Norris, aye. Lead Davids. No. Lead Davids, no. Representative Agbadge. Aye. Agbadge, aye. Representative Anderson.
No.
Anderson, no. Representative Brand.
Brand votes aye.
Brand, aye. Representative Elkins.
Elkins, aye.
Elkins, aye. Representative Howard.
Aye.
Howard, aye. Representative Joy.
No.
Joy, no. Representative Kosnick.
No.
Kosnick, no. Representative Lee.
No.
Lee,
Yes.
aye. Representative Listlegard.
Aye.
Listlegard, aye. Representative Olson B.
No.
Olson B, no. Representative Olson L excused. Representative Pinto.
Aye.
Pinto, aye. Representative Robbins.
No.
Robbins, no. Representative Smith.
Yes.
Smith, yes. Representative Swedzinski.
No.
Swedzinski, no. Representative Weiner.
No.
Weiner, no. Representative Whitty.
No.
Whitty, no. Representative Joachim.
Aye.
Joachim, aye.
Representative Olson's here.
Representative Olson L.
Aye.
Representative Olson L. I. Madam Chair, there being 12 ayes, 9 nays, and 0 members excused.
There being 12 ayes and 9 nays, the motion prevails. House File 2000, the third engrossment as amended, is re-referred to the Committee on Ways and Means.